Crisis Radio. I would just like to look back. This is now out of my book, Obama, the Postmodern Coup, The Making of a Manchurian Candidate. Please, you can access that through tarpley.net, and I hope you will. This is the text. This is the text of a leaflet that was distributed in Manchester, New Hampshire on January 7th, 2008. That is to say, almost 2 years ago now. First alert, don't be duped by Obama and his warmongers. January 7th, 2008. It's the Monday before the New Hampshire primary, which is the following day, Tuesday, and it comes after the Iowa caucus, which was seized by Obama's Lemming Legions, Kool-Aid cultists, and myrmidons. That shocking story of thuggery by Axelrod and his gang of Plouffe and Favreau and the rest of these characters. This is told in a number of Puma documentaries. Anyway, here's what it says. This is a leaflet. Presidential candidate Barack Obama, main announced project so far, bomb Pakistan. I'll repeat. Presidential candidate Barack Obama, main announced project so far, bomb Pakistan. There was no secret. He talked about it all the time. Obama's main foreign policy guru, Zbigniew Brzezinski, main project, the destruction of Russia, the surest path to World War III. That still holds. Mark Brzezinski, son of Zbigniew, former Clinton NSC official and top Obama advisor, architect of the 2004 People Power Color Revolution coup in Ukraine, main project, the destruction of Russia. This is a Polish vendetta against Russia. Top Obama advisor, ex-assistant secretary of state for African affairs, Susan Rice, the one you see now at the United Nations. Main project, bomb Sudan. Top Obama terrorism advisor, Richard Clarke, former terror czar of Clinton and Bush. Main project, originating the official myth of 9/11. Well, Obama has now brought that back in his Phoenix speech and now even more in the West Point speech on December 1st. 9/11 truth needed. Obama's top Middle East advisor, Dennis Ross, that's the former Middle East negotiator for Bush and Clinton. Main project, play the Arabs against the Iranians to perpetuate Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. How about that? Result, a world catastrophe worse than Bush. Final line, don't be duped by Obama and his cabinet of warmongers. Don't be duped by Obama and his cabinet of warmongers. That is January 7th, 2008. Well, I'm afraid that has turned out to be quite accurate. Now, right now, the question of escalation. Obama's trying to get NATO cannon fodder. He wants European troops, European money for Afghanistan and Pakistan, above all, that Bush and Cheney could never have gotten. The question is, will the Europeans hang tough or will they resist? The Germans are stalling on sending more troops into this meat grinder. Germany's stalling. France, the defense minister says France is reluctant to send more, and they are stalling also. Germany, France, both stalling. There's going to be a conference in London on the 28th of January concerning the NATO contribution to the new escalation against Afpakia, above all Pakistan. French Foreign Minister Kouchner says that there is no case so far by Obama for more troops. You've also got Fogh Rasmussen. It's sometimes spelled F-O-G-H, but that's actually a wrong spelling. It's F-A-U-X. The NATO Secretary General Rasmussen from Denmark, which is, oh boy, we're going to talk about Denmark a little bit later. Rasmussen of Denmark tries to recruit Russians. He wants to get free Russian weapons. He wants the Russians to give for free military equipment for the Afghan National Army so that they can, in other words, for the Tajiks, so they can go and antagonize the Pashtuns and drive them into Pakistan to create a civil war and the breakup of Pakistan. And he's now talking with Medvedev in Moscow. I hope that Medvedev and especially Putin will have the good sense not to go along with this particular lunacy. Now, remember, during the Iraq War, we often pointed to the fact that in the case of Iraq, the U.S. forces massed a little bit north of Baghdad, right, in the so-called Sunni Triangle. that in that case, the supply line, in a monstrosity, went across the enemy Iranian front for about 1,500 miles, through the Straits of Hormuz, up the Gulf to Kuwait, and then the two route Tampa roads for between Kuwait City and Baghdad, and then even further north. So essentially, when your supply line runs across the enemy front, the country that the neocons wanted to attack, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because you attack them, then they'll cut your supply line, and you are in essentially a Stalingrad situation. Now, in Afghanistan, if anything, it's even worse, because in this case, your supply line goes directly through the territory, the entire national territory of the country that you want to attack. And there's some inkling of this is coming out. Washington Post, Tuesday, December 15th, supplying troops in Afghanistan with fuel is a challenge for the U.S. Yes, challenge to the U.S., I would say. It turns out the U.S. is building all kinds of fuel facilities that won't be ready for about a year and a half. So at the time that Obama has promised his left liberal lemmings and dupes that he'll be leaving Afghanistan, even though, of course, Jones and Clinton have already said that that's just verbiage, right? Doesn't bind anybody to anything. These fuel storage dumps will only be ready then. So it's clear that the U.S. is there for the long, long haul. They are determined to go down with the ship in terms of the geopolitics of this hub of Central Asia. So here we have Ashton Carter, Undersecretary of Defense at the Pentagon for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics. He says, and I quote, "Getting into Afghanistan, which we need to do as quickly as we can possibly do it, is very difficult because next to Antarctica, Afghanistan is probably the most incommodious place from a logistics point of view to be trying to fight a war. Yes, it's a logistical nightmare, dear Ashton Carter." He goes on to say, "It's landlocked and rugged, and the road network is much, much thinner than Iraq. Fewer airports, different geography." Vice Admiral from the Navy, Alan S. Thompson, Defense Logistics Agency boss, says landlocked Afghanistan is the most difficult logistics assignment we have faced since World War II. Well, what are their needs? They've got to have 300,000 gallons of jet fuel per day. They've got to have diesel, motor oil, aircraft gasoline. A Marine Corps Combat Brigade requires 500,000 gallons of fuel per day. The U.S. now has 100 forward operating bases. These are these tiny little outposts with 10 or 15 people subject to being overrun and annihilated. Each one of these 100 forward bases requires 300 gallons of diesel fuel per day. June 2008, according to the General Accounting Office, 6.2 million gallons of fuel for air and ground operations, about 1 million gallons for base support, including computers, air conditioners, and the rest. Now listen to this. The U.S. military remains heavily dependent on supplies traveling the long, windy, and dangerous roads in the south from Pakistan to Afghanistan. Along those mountainous routes, theft is common. Cash payoffs to insurgents and tribal leaders are believed to be made frequently by truck drivers navigating the region. In the month of June 2008 alone, 44 trucks and 220,000 gallons of fuel were lost because of attacks. They don't like to destroy them. They'd rather steal them. So there's massive bribery. Now, the attempt being made with Russia is to get oil products from Russia, Central Asia, Azerbaijan, across the Caspian Sea, from Baku, across the Caspian Sea, and in. Transit arrangements with Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan are going on. Now, you want to read a blog about this. There's a guy called Sohbet Karbuz. Let me spell it, Sohbet-Karbuz. This is his blog, engineer and economist. He says that the stuff is coming in 1,000 miles over rail from a refinery in Turkmenistan, then barge and rail. And we'll be back in a minute.